Okay, we'll start with this. It appears that Canada's own unbeaten up-and-comer in the junior middleweight division, Mary Spencer, whose career is managed by Eye of the Tiger Management. A very well-to-do outfit up there north of the border. They also handle the career of Arslanbek Makhmudov, Stephen Butler, several other Canadian-based fighters. Mary's supposed to be returning to action next month on the 9th. And it just so happens that in the IBF's last set of updated ranked standings, Mary Spencer comes in at number 1. She's on the cusp of challenging for the IBF title. The blue belt held by her countrywoman, Marie-Eve Dicaire. Because Mary Spencer is already ranked at number 1, and because Mary Spencer already has a fight date booked, one is left to wonder if that fight she's about to have is an IBF final eliminator. I don't know, it could be. I don't get the sense that Mary Spencer is the IBF's mandatory challenger already. I don't get the sense that she's the IBF's mandatory challenger here now. I get the sense that in 1 to 2 fights, that status could be achieved. And when it is, that in 1 to 2 fights, a fight between Mary and the champion could be ordered. It could happen that fast. Currently, the lay of the land at 154 pounds is as followed. Hannah Rankin looks to be facing Terry Harper sometime in September, a month from now. She's the reigning WBA champion. The reigning WBC champion was supposed to be facing Cecilia Brakehouse on the undercard of Rivas versus Rosansky, and it's not quite clear what's going to happen now. Are they going to reschedule the Brakehouse versus Bergoult fight to take place on that undercard, or are they going to move forward with a unification match between Marie-Eve Dicaire and Patricia Bergoult? Rivas versus Rosansky is an Yvonne Michel promotion, and Marie-Eve Dicaire is an Yvonne Michel fighter. Because of this, she may get priority over Cecilia Brakehouse, who isn't an Yvonne Michel Promotions fighter. To my knowledge, she's not the mandatory challenger to Patricia Bergoult's green belt, so it's not like Patricia has to fight her. It's not like she has to fight Cecilia Brakehouse next. She doesn't. If they offer her something a little bit more substantial to unify titles with Marie, as opposed to defending her own against Cecilia, Patricia might decide to go ahead with that instead. She might decide to unify titles with Marie. And if she does, the winner of said unification match will have a target on their back that Mary Spencer is aiming for, regardless of who it is, whether it's Patricia Bergoult that emerges the victor or Marie-Eve Dicaire, whoever ends up in possession of the blue belt this fall. That's who Mary's going to be gunning for. There's still some angles of this story that are somewhat murky. We don't know here and now if Mary Spencer is the mandatory challenger by way of the IBF. What we do know is that she's ranked as their number 1 contender. Behind her is unbeaten Frenchwoman Priscilla Peterle, who in her last fight, she dished out Marianne Alborg, her first professional loss. Marianne Alborg of Sweden. Behind Priscilla Peterle, unbeaten Priscilla Peterle, is Emma Kozin, who's coming off that loss, her first professional loss to Clarissa Shields. Either one of these fighters, either Priscilla Peterle or Emma Kozin, could see themselves facing Mary Spencer in an IBF final eliminator if one is ordered. Now, if Priscilla Peterle and Emma Kozin decide they don't want to fight Mary Spencer, behind the both of them is veteran fighter Chevelle Hallback of the United States, and maybe she could see herself fighting Mary Spencer. The way it breaks down, I'd give Mary very good odds to beat any one of these fighters in the IBF's current ranked standings because she's that good. She's got all the ingredients. She's got the size, the power, and the pedigree. One of the more statuesque fighters in today's junior middleweight division that knows how to use that size. Mary Spencer could see herself becoming a world champion within 12 months' time. In 1 year, she could see herself picking up a belt. In 2 years, she could see herself becoming this division's undisputed champion. You heard what I said. I said undisputed. Mary Spencer is a credible threat to anyone holding an alphabet title in today's junior middleweight division, whether you're talking about Hannah Rankin, Natasha Jonas, or Marie-Eve Dicaire, or Patricia Bergoult. Opposite the ring, Mary Spencer, they're all under grave threat of losing their alphabet titles. That's just the reality of it. Mary Spencer is set to return to action next month on the 9th against an opponent that has yet to be announced, and it looks a lot like she's inching dangerously close to fighting for the blue belt. In men's welterweight news, Michael Benson tweeted, Showtime's Stephen Espinoza has declared that he believes there's a better than 50-50 chance that Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford does get made and takes place this year. Terence Crawford himself very recently chimed in on the probability of the fight happening this year.
I know you got that smile on your face. Everybody's going to keep on asking you the famous question, but you know, a lot of people seem it's closer than ever before the fight versus Errol Spence. You want it, he wants it, everybody wants it. It's possibly going to go down one of the best fights in American history. Talk to us a little bit more about that. You know, where's the status of that as of right now?
Oh man, you know, I love that fight. You know, hopefully, you know, we can get that fight made, you know, down the line and, you know, real soon. Not down the line, real soon. And, you know, give the fans what they've been looking for.
Signs, for the most part, are still encouraging in reference to not only doing the fight, but doing the fight in the near future, not the distant future. Seeing about doing the fight before this year is out, even though there really are no new developments. Some interpret that as a good sign, some don't. We'll just have to wait and see how it all pans out.
Everybody is waiting for it. Everybody is talking about it. Everybody, including Errol Spence Jr.'s own trainer, Derek James.
Derek James, who's preparing for Crawford, saying Errol's going to have to push it to the next level. Listen, I'm just anxious. I can't wait. James told Brian Custer during Showtime's broadcast of the Mark Magsayo versus Ray Vargas featherweight title bout. This is the thing about it. I always want what my guy wants. If my guy wants that, I want that for him. That's all I have to say, because I cannot wait. I'm training for it already, working out for it already. We're going to push it. He being Spence, is going to have to bring it, because I'm telling you, he's going to have to be able to push it to the next level, because that's where we're going to be.
Yeah, he's going to have to push it to the next level, because this isn't Kell Brook coming off a loss to Gennady Golovkin.
And this isn't Sean Porter, who lost to Kell Brook. This isn't Danny Garcia or Yordenis Ugas, who lost to Sean Porter. This is Terence Crawford, a pound-for-pound fighter ranked as such, the same way that Errol Spence Jr. is ranked as such.
But yeah, I think it goes without saying that Errol is going to have to take it to the next level.
This is a very different fight than any of those fights, and that's likely the reason they saved this for last.
More like a last resort.
I'm training for it already, working out for it already. We're going to push it. Spence is going to have to bring it, because I'm telling you, he's going to have to be able to push it to the next level, because that's where we're going to be. James, a former fighter, indicated that what sets himself apart from other trainers is his ability to keep up with his fighters at a high physical level. I train for the training camp for the fighters just like they train, James said. For me, I want to be better. I just got to keep getting better.
You can keep getting better, but you ain't the one that's got to share the ring with Terence Crawford. Errol's got to do that.
That's nothing against Derek James's work ethic and wanting to improve upon certain areas of his own game, but at the end of the day, Derek can't fight the fight for Errol. Errol's got to do that. The most that Derek can do is prepare him for it. James added that he has already started his own pre-training camp workouts. I've been working out, James said. I worked out this morning. I'm telling you, it's on. I'm ready to go.
So Stephen Espinoza says there's more than a 50-50 chance the fight happens this year.
Terence Crawford himself says that they're working on it, and Derek James says that he's ready to go.
The welterweight division can't afford to be held up by this fight any longer. All the alphabet titles in the welterweight division are currently frozen.
Nobody can fight for them. Literally, not a single one of those alphabet titles is accessible to any of the up-and-comers and the contenders in today's welterweight division. They're all tied up between Terence and Errol, and this fight needs to happen, and it needs to happen this year.
It can't wait.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. Showtime as a platform and the PBC as an outfit, they have to compete with whatever Top Rank and ESPN is doing. They have to compete with whatever Matchroom and DAZN are doing. Matchroom and DAZN have two very big cards coming up. Canelo versus Golovkin 3, Joshua versus Usyk 2, and they need to be able to get fights like this over the line to show that they're still in the running, that they still belong, and that they can still do big fights of their own, even if they're not as big as Canelo versus Golovkin 3 or Joshua versus Usyk 2. Two fights that I think will generate more business and more interest than this fight. But better still, there is interest in this fight.
If they can't get this over the line, it will reflect poorly on them, and they will only have themselves to blame.
Now, you heard what Derek James said, that for this fight, they're going to have to take it to the next level, where Errol Spence Jr.'s fans have been berating and belittling Terence Crawford as a fighter, as a champion, as a pound-for-pound alum. Errol Carl's own trainer says they've got to take it to the next level for this guy.
You think they'd have to take it to the next level for a guy that didn't beat nobody?
This entire situation and the narratives that have been tacked onto it the last 4 years remind me of what we saw ahead of the Guillermo Rigondeaux versus Vasyl Lomachenko fight. Leading up to that fight, at least before it was actually signed.
Oh, you had a lot of Vasyl Lomachenko detractors putting a battery in Rigo's back.
Making bold proclamations, bold predictions as to what it was Guillermo Rigondeaux was going to do to Vasyl Lomachenko. And you saw proliferation of these kinds of bold proclamations up until the fight was actually signed. Up until the fight was actually made official.
Then everybody's fucking tune changed.
We weren't seeing as many bold predictions once the fight was officially announced. I think we're going to see something similar in reference to this fight. As far as the odds makers and how they have it, Terence Crawford appears to be a slight favorite at this time. It's almost even money.
That could change. We could see a surge of late money for Terence Crawford as the fight date approaches.
Might be the slight favorite now, right now, where it's close to even money. But if the fight is officially announced, that fight date approaches, he might be the clear favorite right before the fight.
Reality will set in the same way it did with Rigo and Loma.
A lot of fight fans and a lot of content creators have been quite comfortable the last 4 years propagating these narratives as they belittled and berated Terence Crawford's fighting ability, but all of that could come to a screeching halt very soon when they're faced with the reality.
When they're faced with the reality of these two guys actually fighting.
They love it when they're not fighting. They love it when there's no actual fight signed.
And they can say whatever they want with impunity.
But you will notice how the energy changes if and when an official announcement is made. Men's heavyweight news. On the heels of his big win over Trevor Bryan here in the US of A, Daniel Dubois wants a step-up fight. He wants someone like Derek Chisora or Dillian Whyte.
Somebody experienced, somebody who's been around the block, and more importantly, somebody with a name, somebody with a profile.
I want a step-up fight, a real fight, Dubois told ID Boxing's Rob Tebbett. Someone like Derek Chisora or Dillian Whyte. These are guys I need to fight next. In the next step in my career, these are the guys that will give me a battle, test my chin out. I want to give the fans excitement, settle a few things out, and get it on.
Dubois versus Chisora or Dubois versus Whyte are both fights that could do good business in the UK.
Daniel Dubois is in need of doing some good business with legitimate businessmen, legitimate business, as he's currently in the process of suing Don King for monies owed to him.
He didn't get his full purse for the Trevor Bryan fight, which came as a surprise to no one.
It's not a surprise that here in 2022, Don King is still stiffing fighters out of their purses. What money is owed to them? I think the real surprise
was when he won the purse bid, though. When he won the purse bid, you knew this wouldn't end well.
Once I get guys like Dillian Whyte and those guys, those are the fights that will get me ready for the rematch with Joe, insists Dubois, who is expected to return to the ring this fall. I need to be riding high on confidence and belief. He's no slouch. He's a top fighter. I need to raise my game, raise my confidence. I'm heading in the right direction. We know that Derek Chisora is coming off that win over Kubrat Pulev, where he avenged the loss for their initial meeting some years ago. We know that Dillian Whyte, he's coming off that loss to Tyson Fury, and Dillian Whyte is a network and promotional free agent, you understand. Even though he does a lot of business with Matchroom, he does have the legal liberty to take his business elsewhere if he feels so inclined. I don't know if he wants to keep doing business with old fish eyes Frank Warren.
It's not like the negotiations for the Fury fight went smoothly.
They really didn't. The fight ended up going to a purse bid because Frank Warren would not satisfy Dillian Whyte's purse demands. The only reason that Frank Warren ended up paying him a little more than what he initially offered is because he had to ensure he pours more money into the pot so that the rights to the fight don't go to Matchroom, as Matchroom was in the running for that fight. They put a bid in for the rights to Fury versus Whyte. Things didn't go smoothly between Dillian Whyte and old fish eyes Frank Warren, so I don't know if that might have soured him to doing more business with the people over there at Queensbury and BT.
For what it's worth, I think Dillian Whyte versus Daniel Dubois makes sense.
At this point in Daniel's career, he needs to be fighting either former champions or world title challengers, and that's what Dillian Whyte is. He's a guy who challenged for a world title and has been in the upper echelon of the heavyweight division for some years now. I'm not telling you he's Tyson Fury. I'm just telling you he's better than your average guy. You do have to compete at a certain level to beat Dillian Whyte. I think the same rings true for Derek Chisora. Even today's Derek Chisora, who's pushing 40 and he's got losses in the double digits, he's still a capable fighter and he's still a draw. These are both high-profile fights for Daniel if they can get them over the line. time. Though when it comes to Derek apparently is in the running for a third fight with Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury named him as a person of interest. Eddie Hearn very recently stated that the Tyson Fury people reached out to the Derek Chisora people. Fighting Tyson Fury for a third time would satisfy the purse demands you come to expect from Derek Chisora, because he loves to fight. He does fight, but he don't fight on the cheap. That's what he don't do. He wouldn't be the A-side to Tyson Fury, but in many ways he would be the A-side fighter to Daniel Dubois, if you can believe that. Yes, it's true. He is a bigger draw in the United Kingdom than Daniel Dubois. Daniel would be looking to make a name for himself fighting Derek Chisora.
Because Derek already has a name, and so does Dillian.
That's the way it breaks down, and it's for that reason that I don't know how realistic either of these fights are. I'd sooner expect Dillian Whyte to pop up over there at Sky Sports and Boxer to see what they have to offer him before he'd entertain doing any further business with Frank Warren and the people over there at Queensbury and BT. I don't know how much money they'd have to offer him to get him in the ring with Daniel Dubois, though, even off a loss. Dillian's name has more name value than Daniel's does.
And what are the odds that the people over there at Sky Sports and Boxer haven't already spoken to Dillian?
You guys know what's going on. Both Ben Shalom and Adam Smith have been in the process of attempting to poach some of Matchroom's fighters, some of their familiar faces. And I'd wager that Dillian Whyte would be a person of interest. He would be one among them. A guy they very much want to bring over to the Sky Sports Boxer side of things. Remember, Dillian Whyte is a network and promotional free agent.
He ain't tied down.
So I don't know. Maybe Daniel Dubois should look to fight Robert Helenius, who beat Adam Kovnowski 2 times. Maybe he should look to fight Ali Demirezin, who just dished out Adam Kovnowski's 3rd professional loss. Maybe he can look to take on an unbeaten guy in Germany's own, Agit Kabayel. There are options out there. Perhaps not as high profile as Dillian Whyte or Derek Chisora, but there are 1 or 2 guys floating around.
1 or 2 guys that can give Daniel a decent fight where he has to work for it and gains experience.
You know what I could go for? Daniel Dubois versus Martin Bacol. Martin Bacol's coming off that career best win over unbeaten Tony Yoka.
It's a good fucking fight, but it's a risky fight also.
Perhaps the Daniel Dubois people want to put him in there with somebody, but mitigate the risks.
Let's not just go crazy here. Let's not throw caution to the wind.